So I had the opportunity to shoot on the new Blackmagic URSA Cine 17K 65. I had a week with it, so I knew I wanted to get the most out of it, so I scheduled a number of different shoots to try to get as many environments and shooting conditions that I could. And I just wanted to kind of share my first impressions and experience using this camera over the week that I had it. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of go through the week on the different shoots and talk about a couple of things that kind of really stood out to me on that particular shoot. So if that interests you, then let's nerd out about the coolest and best camera that I have ever shot on. All right, so day one with the camera, first shoot day with the camera, right when I got it in, I built it out and rigged it out and configured it the way I wanted to. But the first shoot day was, I think, the next day or the day after I got the camera, so didn't really have any time to really get to know the camera. It was really just on the shoot, but I had a lot of confidence going into this shoot that there wouldn't be a steep learning curve because I've been using Blackmagic cameras since the 2.5K came out. So what are the 2013, so over 11, 12 years. And although the camera software has changed since then, I mean, since like the URSA Mini Pro G2 and the Pocket 4K and above and all those, it's a very familiar operating system and in terms of the menus and all that. And then it actually felt quite familiar to the URSA Mini Pro G2, which is a camera that I owned for quite a few years and really liked that camera. So all of this familiarity really helped me on the shoot because I felt like I could just kind of focus my energy on the creative side, getting the shots, setting things up, making sure talent were in the right place, and talking with the client and the location and all that all together in one, and not having to just worry about the camera. And you know, I feel like if it was a completely different camera system, this has happened to me before, where I'm trying to like troubleshoot things and trying to find in a random menu or sub menu where something is. That wasn't the case with the URSA Cine 17K, just because pretty much everything was exactly laid out as it is on even the Pixis, just some different menu items depending on the IO and all that stuff, and resolution obviously. But it really felt like second nature operating the camera. Now, the thing that did not feel familiar at all was the massive sensor inside of the 17K 65. Not only does it shoot in 17K resolution, but the sensor size is much bigger than your typical full frame camera at like 36 by 24 or whatever it is. The 17K 65 is actually like 50 by 24 or somewhere around there. I'll leave it exactly what the spec is, but much wider than your typical sensor. And it ends up giving you a native 2.2 to 1 aspect ratio when you are filming in open gate 17K. And this just gives you a really unique look. That wider aspect ratio really kind of fills out the frame, but when you're using something like a 50 or 75 or 100 mil or something, you still get that compression. So to me, that everything just kind of felt almost larger than life, and it really felt like you were there. Like when I was playing back the footage, it really felt like how I felt when I was filming the different scenes, which was just a really unique experience, both capturing the footage and also editing the footage as well. But the first day went really well. I was really happy with how the footage turned out, and you can just see that 17K resolution. I shot everything that you're gonna see in 17K resolution, and mostly 24p with the exception of a few 48p shots, and you can just see like how much detail there is with that 17K resolution, but also just how rich the image looks. And I don't know if that's the right word, but to me the image just felt like really rich and beautiful and natural looking and just really true to life. And obviously lighting and all that stuff certainly helped out with that, but I was just really impressed with the image quality, but also just like that three-dimensional look that you get with that massive sensor. So moving on from a more higher production type of shoot, I wanted to move on to the next shoot, schedule another shoot where this was just all natural light, no bounce cards, no shaping light in it whatsoever, more of like a doc style type of shoot. And so what this was just on like actually coastal expeditions. They did like a sunset cruise tour. And so I took the camera out and I brought 3 lenses. I brought the 25, 50, and 100 to give me a wide, medium, and tight. And speaking of the lenses, I was shooting on the DZO Arl or Arls. I don't know how you pronounce that, but big shout out to B&H for loaning those out to me. They're a huge supporter of this channel, and they were cool enough to send these out on loan, let me borrow them, and I've already sent them back sadly, but anyways, yeah, so shot on the DZO RL lenses, and being in like kind of like a tight quarters that you are on the smaller boat, you could really kind of see that bigger sensor sort of like shine, like on that 25 mil. Now you do get a little bit of vignetting. I think I had to punch in like 10% to get rid of the vignetting, but you could really see just how three-dimensional it looks. Everything from like the fall off from in focus to out of focus to the compression that you get, and everything was just really cool. But another thing that I really wanted to see and test out on this particular shoot was how harsh highlights look and what highlight roll off looks from the sunlight hitting skin tones and all that, and even like the sky where the sun is, like does it just kind of look natural? And I was really blown away by the dynamic range of the 17K sensor. The highlight roll off looks incredible to me, and I mean, this is a pretty basic grade. I think I threw like a color space transform and then a little bit of like a 2383 look on there, so nothing crazy, but you can kind of see, at least to my eyes, I think the highlight roll off looks really nice, and there is so much detail all the way from highlights to shadows, where I really feel like I was able to just kind of make the decision of, do I want to make this look darker or brighter, and have all that information to play with in post to kind of make that creative decision after the fact. Now this shoot, it did end up after the sun went down, so we were kind of running into blue hour, into, you know, pretty much low light. And another thing that I was actually really impressed with this camera was how clean the image is in terms of the shadows, and that's actually super helpful. And I noticed that in low light, where I felt like I could really kind of push the image and everything still looked really clean. And especially when you're going from 17K down to a 4K timeline, that helps tremendously as well. And that's cool because I don't really foresee a 17K timeline being in my future like anytime soon. So that was something else that I was just really impressed with, and pleasantly surprised with how clean the image sensor was on the 17K. So yeah, from this shoot, the 2 things that I got out of this were just the dynamic range and how crazy good the dynamic range is, and also how clean the image sensor is, especially in terms of shadows and low light. Now, when you get the opportunity to shoot on such a cool camera, you want to make the most of it. At least I did. I wanted to make the most of it. I scheduled a ton of shoots, and sadly, a tropical storm had other plans, and I had to cancel a couple of the shoots because they were all outside. I was trying to get some sunrise shoots at some really cool locations, and sadly I had to cancel those due to weather, and that was a huge bummer. But it did give me an opportunity to just kind of reflect on the footage, bring the footage in, edit it, do some color, and also insert it into this other project that I've been working on for a client of mine for like a 30-second spot. Now, I can't show you anything from that project because it's not yet finished, but one thing that did make this client project way easier and faster was using Artlist, and that is the sponsor of today's video. If you don't know what Artlist is, it's an all-in-one creative platform with music, sound effects, footage, I mean, you name it, is got it on there. And for this project in particular, I used music and sound effects and even the AI voiceover feature. Now, the AI voiceover feature is actually really cool because it allowed me to, before I even recorded the handpicked voiceover talent for this spot, I was able to put in the script and create an AI voiceover for the script so I could start editing the project with the footage I already had and use that as kind of a placeholder for me to start figuring out pacing and everything that I wanted for the voiceover actor when I recorded him, so that we could kind of get everything a lot quicker. And that was kind of the name of the game for this, was Artlist just really sped up everything. It was really easy to find music using artboards and their AI features with that. It was just a really nice and easy process to find the music and sound effects and all that. And I've been using Artlist for years, so anytime Artlist wants to sponsor a video, it's an easy yes for me because I already use the product and I recommend it all the time to anyone asking me for their creative assets needs. So if you are in the market, they have a ton of other AI features and stuff that they've released that honestly I haven't really had the time to dive into because I've been super busy on these client projects. But if you are interested in checking out Artlist, use the description down below, and if you sign up using that link, then you can get 2 free months. So thank you Artlist for sponsoring this video, and on to the next shoot. So this shoot was a daylight interior shoot, and thankfully the weather cleared up. The tropical storm decided to peace out, and we got nice, pretty sunny skies with a combination of the hottest and muggiest day of the year, it seemed like. So that part wasn't awesome, but the location was awesome. This is at like one of my favorite historic homes in Charleston called the Nathaniel Russell House. And they've got this like iconic staircase that's like, I can't remember how, it's like a spiral staircase that's like fully suspended or something. I can't remember what it is, but it's a pretty iconic historic home museum in Charleston that you can actually tour, which is pretty neat. And so I got, we had just one talent for this whole location. And one thing that was like kind of challenging for this shoot was because it was a historic home, they were very sensitive to having a lot of film equipment, obviously for obvious reasons, having a lot of film equipment, light stands, all that kind of stuff, because, you know, they wanted to make sure that the location didn't get damaged, the wood floors would still be preserved and all that. So we brought in minimal equipment and did our absolute best to make sure that we were respectful of the space. So pretty much every shot, with the exception of 2 different shots, was all just natural ambient light, and the leaning on the strength of the dynamic range of the sensor, and also how well the camera does with mixed lighting. It really wasn't that big of an issue to just use natural light. And honestly, I think my favorite shot of the entire time I had the camera, I didn't use a single light. It was just a Dana dolly just pushing in, having kind of a reveal off a door frame, and the talent walking to this window. And everything is perfectly exposed. The highlights are exposed, shadows exposed, and everything. There were a couple of shots where it was user error that I did clip the highlights, and I'm not sure what happened there. I was using the highlight little traffic light thing on the histogram down at the bottom, and there was no clipping there, but there was some clipping on false color. There was some red on the false color. So I'm not sure if it was just user error or there was some kind of bug or something like that, or discrepancy between the exposure tools. But other than that, I mean, the clipped highlights aren't like the end of the world, and it was clear that like there was enough information in there to preserve in the shadows. So it was probably user error. I mean, comment down below if you've been there. I think it's more user error than anything else. And this shoot was also probably the most I shot in off-speed recording. I only went up to 48p on this camera just because for this kind of shoot, for more of a commercial type thing, 48p is kind of the sweet spot. It does go up to 60p in 17K open gate, which is insane to even say that, but I really didn't record any slow motion footage. If you do want to see slow motion footage from the URSA 17K, then head over to Of Two Lands. He's got a ton of footage that he shot in 8K 100 and 17K 60 and a bunch of different flavors of footage. So head over to his channel. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below to check out more URSA 17K footage that completely blows my footage out of the water. Now the last shoot that I'll talk about is a location that we did at another restaurant. This was actually the same day. This was just later in the day after we did that shoot at the Nathaniel Russell house. And honestly, I was probably the least happy about this footage-wise than I was anything else. No fault of the camera. It was just things that I wish I would have done differently as in terms of framing and lighting, but it was just kind of a balance of making a lot of people happy, because all this stuff I was using was for a client project. So still doesn't look terrible. There was just some stuff I would probably definitely have done differently. But one thing I would not have done differently is I actually decided to take the 7-inch monitor off. So I'd been using a Small HD Indy 7 that Small HD was kind enough to loan out to me for the shoot. But this time I actually took the monitor off and just used the on-screen or on-camera monitor that flips out on the URSA Cine. And I did have a bigger production monitor, which was obviously super helpful, but that was also for client and whatnot. And when I was like moving data dolly and stuff, I wasn't looking over at that monitor. I was just using the monitor on the camera. And then I was also using the EVF when I went handheld, especially when I mounted it up on my shoulder. And I really like that EVF. That's probably one of the best EVFs that I've ever looked through. And I've become a huge fan of EVFs over the last year, and I just feel like it gives me just a different, more immersive experience while filming, and I feel like I feel much more connected to the footage when I'm filming through an EVF. And the Blackmagic EVF for the URSA Cine is awesome because it has like all the tools like right on it. So anyways, that was a little bonus there. All right, I was really impressed with this camera. Just kind of wrap things up, just a few things that I didn't mention earlier on. Now, the price point of this camera is probably out of reach for a lot of us out there. And I don't think that should dissuade you from actually using the camera, because I think this is going to be a really good rental camera for specific projects. And there's really no camera out there, at least that comes to mind, that has this large of a sensor, that high of resolution and frame rates at that price point. Not to mention it's an RGBW sensor. So it is a 17K sensor, but you can scale down to 8K and 4K without having to crop in on the sensor and still get that super large format look that you get in 17K, but you can save a ton on data and get higher frame rates and a faster readout speed. So I think for a lot of people that decide to rent this camera, unless you are doing landscape or wildlife stuff or whatnot, where that extra resolution is super helpful, I think filming in 8K will be kind of the sweet spot of this camera, and that'll still give you plenty of room to punch in or reframe or help with stabilization or anything like that. But what's crazy is even the 17K footage edits on my M1 Max MacBook Pro just like butter, like any other like Pixis footage or URSA Mini Pro G2 footage. I was so surprised. The only time that I saw a slowdown was during export. That's pretty much the only time that I've noticed that my computer really starts to slow down, and it averages like 9 frames per second on export when exporting 17K footage. But I've had other footage that was in different codecs that is much lower resolution that takes just about as long to render. So that Blackmagic RAW is probably easily my favorite codec to work with by far. Now, one other thing that I found just super convenient, and I'm glad it's on the camera, is the 10 gigabit Ethernet port. Sounds silly, but I didn't have the media module to transfer footage from. So thankfully I have a 10 gigabit Ethernet network switch that's right by my computer. And I actually just have an extra Ethernet cable hanging around for that purpose. I've had to use it honestly for my Pixis 6K as well, because one of my memory cards wouldn't mount. Different story, whole video on that, I'll leave it up in the description or wherever. But this being 10 gigabit Ethernet, the transfer speeds were really quite fast, and it was just kind of nice that I just put the camera up, turned it on, plugged it in, and away we go, and just offloaded the footage to my NAS and to another drive for backup. And also, this being a bigger camera has more room for more inputs and outputs, and the 2 SDI outs is super helpful because one I could use for my on-camera monitor when I was using a 7-inch monitor, and I could send over whatever tools I wanted to that. And the other one I could use to send through to my Teradek to send out to the larger production monitor and send different tools over to that, maybe a 16:9 frame guide, or turn focus peaking on and off or whatever. And that was super helpful. So that's pretty much it about my first impressions of the camera. I had a really positive experience with the camera, and it was kind of refreshing filming with a bigger camera like the URSA Cine as opposed to something like the Pixis or the Komodo X or something, because yeah, just like bigger cameras, more weight, even the handheld stuff just looks more natural and all that. And yeah, I was just really happy with the camera, and the image quality is bonkers. It's super insane. So anyways, thank you for watching and hanging around, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one, which hopefully the next one will be about how I actually rig the camera, and then I've got some more coming up about powering the camera and all that, and this should apply to the URSA Cine 17 and 12K. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.